Hey guys, it's NerdNick, and I'm bringing you part 2 of the How to Design Dollar Tree Foam Board Planes tutorial. In this section we're going to be covering how to use the line tool, and then really how do you begin tracing out your plane parts to begin the plans. So we're going to jump right in. We've already got the proper size of our airplane. We're looking at about a 40-inch wingspan with this scale right now, which is what I'm aiming for in terms of size. My goal with this plane is to put on 2 different size motors, or at least design it to allow for 2 different size motors. One setup being 3-cell should push the plane in the 60s or so, and then the other setup should push it with 4S just over 100. Let's go ahead and get started with the actual tracing of the plan. So the reason we picked this image, we talked about a little bit before. It has a great side view, and we're actually going to start right there with our tracing. So with the line tool selected, one of the things that we want to check is what is the weight of our line. This is how wide the line is. I picked 10 just as a preference. To me, it's a nice thick line. It's not too thin, works well. So I recommend starting with 10. You can play around with that. But again, that's how thick the line is. One of the other things I'll be doing a lot with the line tool is holding down the shift key. You can get a nice straight line if you hold down shift and then click and drag, and if you move your cursor around, it'll jump to 90, 45, so it makes a nice straight line. If you do not hold shift, then it's a free, whatever you want, and in the little info box it'll tell you what degree you are, what the length is in centimeters. So shift is going to be something we use a lot. When we do the first traces, we really want to build around a flat or vertical frame so that everything's square and we can get good alignment. Once we've got everything down, we can twist it around a little bit and mess with it, but we want to start with a nice straight flat line. So I'm just going to jump back on the history side over here, back to before I wrote any lines, so there they disappear. Every time you draw a line, you will create a new layer. So as you see, these all drop new layers. Now this is important. Photoshop really, this is one of the powerful parts about any editing tool that you're using. GIMP, Paint.net, Inkscape, Photoshop, they have the ability to do layers, and with the layer you can individualize a certain portion of the design. So you can focus just on one piece. You can move things around. So if I grab the move tool and I'm selected on this layer, it only moves that item. So it gives you a lot of fine control. It also you can move things behind other things. So if I drag this down, it's putting it in order of what's on top in terms of visually. If I go all the way to the bottom, it would put it underneath, and so you can even hide things. And we'll play around with that a little bit as we move along. But we'll be looking with the line tool right now a lot with the layers, and then also with the history as we make adjustments and everything. So I'm going to start with the fuselage here. What we're going to do, just zoom in, grab your line tool, get your weight of 10, make sure you have the right color selected. So you have your main color options down here, but then the actual fill and stroke can change the color. So if I selected that blue and look at my line, it actually looks like my color is not showing up. As you see, I selected blue for my fill, for my stroke, and then it comes out as gray. The first time this happened, I was a little confused and I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was making a mistake, but actually the issue is that I'm in a mode that's grayscale, so we needed to change this. If this ever happens, go up to image mode and then select RGB color. This will process for a second, and then it should allow for the full color range. Alright, so now when I draw my line, I have my blue color. So this is really what you want to adjust. We want to go with black, and after you draw the line, you can even go back and change it. So if I go back to black, it will change, and then the next one will be the same color. So again, if I change it now, it'll take on the color that I just selected, and if I go to another layer, I can actually change that color as well. as long as I'm selected on the line tool and I select the layer, I can change the color of that line. Okay, so now that we have proper color, we're going to go ahead and start this. So, okay, so what we want to do right now is go ahead and start with the fuselage. So the first thing you need to decide is what is the end, like how long is the fuselage going to be? Where's the end? Where's the nose going to be of the foam board? And so this section here really could be a spinner on a normal plane. In this case, this is, you know, it's just a nose. So this makes it pretty easy for us. We don't need to worry about deciding where the motor starts, where the firewall ends, or any of that. So what we're going to do right now for this portion is just trace around the nose. If you were dealing with a plane that did not have you know, side motors, but it had a normal motor in the center, you'd have to pick a section of where's the foam going to actually end. If you had a spinner in your prop, you know, somewhere around here would be a good idea to say this is where my foam is going to end, and the rest of the space is going to be occupied by the prop and spinner and motor shaft. So if you're designing a normal style plane, you would want to make your straight line there. So the first thing I'll do is just start with a line. We're not dealing with straight lines here, so I'm sorry, we're not dealing with a flat line, a 90 degree or anything, so we have to just guess. What I like to do is click in the middle of the line and then move until I can line up again in the middle of the line without cutting out any information. So if I go too long, you see I have a gap now above where I'm missing the shape of the line. There's not a curve there anymore, right? So I would essentially have to, you know, drop it back a little bit. So I click, and without moving the mouse, I'm going to click again to start the next line. Then I'll move again to the middle of this line and drop it, click again, and essentially just keep doing this. Now this portion of the nose is kind of interesting because it's going to be rounded. I'm not sure yet how I want to fully tackle that. So I'm gonna go ahead and add, you know, the nose around, but I may end up chopping it right about here and then making this part like a poster board cone so it's nice and round. But we'll have to decide that later. So I'm gonna go ahead and just keep going around this. Now, one of the things you notice again is my line is blue, so I need to go back and change this to black. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. And normally you'd want to do this after your first line so that then the following lines are the proper color. Okay, so we just changed that, and I actually don't like that I started the curve here. I'm going to do a nice curve around, so I'm going to drop back, and it should be this latest layer. I'm going to select it and hit delete, and now it's gone. So now I go back to my line tool right in the middle of the line, and I keep going around. There's no wrong or right answer here. We're pretty zoomed in, so as you zoom out and look at this on a big scale, the lines will be much straighter, and the curve isn't as jerky. So if I tell the background to go away, if you zoom out, you know, it's a pretty curved line. So one of the things that's a little difficult about this specific drawing is that I cannot see the bottom. I don't see the angle where it goes. So this is kind of a, I'm gonna have to guess really. I don't think I have an image or a view that shows really well how much curve, if any. Looking at this, I can't really tell. Top view I can't tell, bottom view I can't really see it. So I'm gonna give it just a gradual curve so that it kind of matches up with this line here. So zoom back in, so click again, and then I'm going to go on this side, kind of start this one going. Okay. So I get an idea of where I need to go. And I can go back and clean this up later if I don't think it's smooth enough or the curve is too sharp or not sharp enough. But that looks alright. Let me make the background go away. Yeah, that's not bad. Let me clean up here a little bit so it's not, there's no sharp edges, but for right now that's good. Okay, so we're going to move on here to the tail section. Okay, so we get right about to the end of the fuselage. Now, you want to end right about where the rudder flex point is, right where the control surface can move, because really you want the fuselage to end here, and then the actual the whole vertical piece is going to be its own piece that the notch is in. So we want to end the fuselage right here. We're going to bring it up, and I'm going to bring it up to the height of the horizontal piece. So from this view I can't really see. It looks like it's just this here. I'm going to verify by looking at the other view to see how far back, how far forward it might go. So it looks like it doesn't, it begins, you know, maybe a fifth of the way in, and then it may end about the same distance before the end of the tail. And looking at, let's see, this image, I think, yeah. So this image, we see, yeah, it doesn't go quite all the way to the end, but it actually does go up. It's got a little fancy shape, but the height of it, yeah, that looks about right. So when I look back at my image here, the foam board for the horizontal piece is going to sit right on top of this piece, and it looks like this is right where it's at. So I'm going to call that good and draw a straight line over, so that again the horizontal is going to glue, you know, right here basically. It's going to sit right here. And if you want to get an idea, Dollar Tree foam board's about 0.47 centimeters thick. So that's where it's going to sit. That's where they would basically glue it right there. Okay, so we'll go back. We don't care about that right now. So this line now, this is an interesting line, because as we draw this straight line across, what we want to make sure we do is we leave enough space, we leave enough height, so that our formers can have the proper shape. So this, the way this is drawn out is this center line here that runs through should represent where it is on these different pieces. So the height of piece E is relative to this line right here, would be this line, right? So I need you know, roughly that much height to get the proper curve on the poster board. So if this line, and this plane works out, it ends up being pretty close, but some planes, this line coming across will be way up higher, and so you only have a little tiny space for your former. So you really have to make a decision: do I want to make the plane just taller, or do I need to shrink down the sidewalls, or, you know, what do I need to do? But you want to try to get enough height from the top of the plate here to where your former is going to go, so that you can get the proper curve with the foam board, because your formers now are going to sit, you know, right around here. And so if they're too short, your foam board is going to be nice, it'll be flat, and it won't be a nice round shape. It'll be kind of an oblong, you know, pancake. But to get the proper curve, you want to make sure you have the right height. So again, this plane ends up being just about right when I'm coming up to the height of the horizontal stabilizer, and then running across, I get a nice, it's basically as good as I'm going to get in terms of the height of the poster board and the former. So this is perfect. In my opinion, this will work great. So we'll bring that up front, and we're going to zoom in here and make sure this actually lines up. So we'll zoom in, and then I can see it's a little off, so I'll grab my move tool and click up a few times. And now it's nice and lined up. Okay. So again, I'm not 100% sure how I want to tackle this nose piece, but I'm gonna leave it like that for now. I'll add my line here, just because I think this is where we're gonna actually end up cutting it off, and then doing this on poster board. Yeah, so we'll do that. Okay, so once you have the rough shape of what we want, the next thing we need to do is join all these pieces so that they're not just individual lines. As you can see, there's 30 of them or so. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to select the first one, which again, if I look, it's the one right up here, and each piece goes all the way around and up to the last one, which is this last long one that I just actually started the vertical one, the one before that's the long one. Yeah. So I'm going to start with the last or first, hold down Shift, and then click the other one. Now all of them are selected at once. If I right click now and I select raster size layers, it turns them all into flat images instead of them being dynamic and modifiable. They're no longer a line that can be changed in color, with the click of a button there. They are a flat line. They're an actual image. I can now join these images, so they're still selected. I'll right click again and I'll go to merge layers. Now I've effectively turned each one of those images into one layer. So if I click on or off, you can see now it's all just one big piece. And this big piece can be interacted with and moved around as a whole. Okay, so now that we've traced out the fuselage, we would essentially do the same thing for all the other pieces. So the pieces we can see right now in this view is the vertical stabilizer here, and then the horizontal stabilizer. So we would go ahead and trace out the pieces in the same way, with a little exception. So I'm going to go ahead and start right here. And of course my line changed. We're going to go ahead and fix that right now. Color. Okay. And we'll go back. The shorter lines give us, better curves, and then on the straighter parts you can do longer lines. Get away with that. Okay. So one of the techniques that flight tests use and that I've kind of adopted here is that the fuselage on the very end, both sides are going to come together and pinch the vertical stabilizer right around here. And for that to work, I have to create a vertical stabilizer piece that notches in. So this line's going to continue on, and then this line here is actually going to continue on as well. It's going to come into the fuselage here, and I'm going to hold down Shift to get a straight line. It's going to break in, and how we notch this and everything we'll get to in the next part of the series. But essentially, it's going to do something like this, where it comes up to about the height of the horizontal, and then this piece is also going to do the same thing, where you kind of create a notching piece like that. Now, where these lines need to be and how it intersects is not something that we can determine right this second, so I'm going to back up here, but I just want to show you that you need to bring in this line and you need to bring in that line down past where it should be, because these are going to turn into a little more, a lot more detailed here. But that's the beginning shape of my vertical stabilizer, and then I'm going to go ahead and add in the full cut mark on this one. This would be a full cut mark, so all the way through, and then this would be a 50%. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this to red. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that yet. I need to draw my next line first. So I'm going to click and hold down Shift so I have a nice straight line, and that's going to come down. And actually, it looks like it may split. It may, I've never done this before, but it may. Let's try this. We'll do red there, and I'll draw our next one here. And there's going to be a kind of a wedge gap here so that we can move the elevator. So we'll leave that there for now, and we're going to go ahead and join all these pieces here. So we're going to click on the last one, scroll down, hold down Shift, and we're going to go ahead and raster size these layers and then merge them. And now we should have one piece. So if there's my one piece. Okay, and now we're going to go and do the same thing on the elevator portion. Okay, so one of the things I like to do, because drawings aren't always accurate, and my curve, going around a line tool with the curve and then trying to do the same thing on the other side is pretty much impossible, is I like to draw one side and then duplicate the whole thing. So we're going to go ahead and grab our line tool. We're going to start with black, and we're going to go ahead and draw around. So it looks like this piece is curved, so we're going to break the lines up a few times. Get a little bit of a curve there. I'm not sure how this is going to look. I think this has some angle to it. I'm going to go ahead and bring the piece around though, around this this little hump here. I think we'll end up putting poster board that runs around the side and kind of comes up and gives some of the shape. I'll have to look at some more images to see just how it works, but we'll bring that around. So we'll go just about halfway there, and then up here as well. I'm not sure what is sticking out here. Let's take a look. Is it the rudder? So it looks like it might just be part of the elevator, or the fuselage maybe, coming up on top. Okay. So this whole piece here, I'm going to have to take a look at some of the full-size images here to see what's going on. So for now, I'm just going to draw this across, so we can join this and get this. We may have to modify though. I think this is part of the fuselage, or it might be part of the actual horizontal piece here. Not sure yet though. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and join all these pieces. Raster size, merge layers. So now we have one image, and before we finish the last step, we're going to go ahead and add our cut. So this would be a black cut through, and then we need to add our go just past 50%. And this one's going to be red. This is our 50% cut here. There's that. Okay. So now we're going to add, this is our, yep, that's the image we joined, so we'll select all of these and go ahead and merge them down, and now they're one. Okay, so now what we do here is we're going to take this whole layer. I'm just going to select the layer and then do a Control A and then a Control Copy, or Control C, and go ahead and open up a new layer, paste it in, and then I'm going to flip it. So I'm going to image rotation, and then I'm going to flip horizontally, and then Control A, Control Copy, go back over here and paste it in. So now what I should have, where did it go? There it is. Okay. So I should have the other half of it. And again, I do this just because I never can create the same, curve exactly on the second try. So this makes it really easy to line up. I'm going to go ahead and make that go away. We'll zoom in and make sure these lines line up really well. Okay. So that's lined up in terms of height. Now let's just make sure we have our width is good. So that should be touching there. We'll bring this back in. And it looks like we need to make it a little bit wider out. So right about there. And again, as you can see, the drawing is not identical, right? The line is significantly off, which for the drawing is fine, but we want it to be, symmetrical. So let's see. So we need to add a little piece there. That one's good. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. So there's that piece. Okay. And now we're going to go ahead and join that layer, and then this new line we just drew. So right click and then we're going to merge. Now they're one piece. I like to name these just so when I'm looking at them later, this is horizontal. I think the 31 is this one's a vertical, and then this one was the fuselage. So this is just, I just clicked, just like you would in Windows to rename a file. Click twice and hold your mouse, and then you can change the name. So you can see the name of the layers there as you're working. Okay, so we just covered tracing out fuselage, tracing out the horizontal stabilizer and the vertical stabilizer, adding the 50% cuts, and just general use of the line tool. For right now, we're going to end part 2, and we'll pick up the wing in part 3, and then also we'll start adding the formers, and then looking at how do we notch and how do we align the horizontal stabilizer and the vertical stabilizer so that everything comes together nice and clean on the build. So guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please post in the comments below. We'll see you for part 3.